lady turned to me just apropos of nothing and said, "Hi, my name's Heidi. My friend has an antique store in Beechwood Canyon, and he just got Frank Sinatra's tuxedo, and we're looking for a home for it." Apropos of nothing, I was dumbstruck. So I went to the store, tried it on, and it really did fit. It fit before, pre-pandemic, it was a loose fit. Let's just put it that way.
I think we've all been there, we've all been there. Hi everyone, my name's Mark Wilson. I'm here with thescotsman.com, and today I'm joined by
Richard Shelton.
And if you forgot your glasses, or if you're hard of seeing, you might struggle to tell who Richard is playing. But I think the second that I sort of walked into the room and saw your face, saw how you were dressed, it was very clear that you are playing Frank Sinatra at this year's Edinburgh Fringe.
That's right. Yes, I am. Yeah.
So tell us about the show, One Last Shot.
One Last Shot. Okay, so we meet Frank Sinatra in New Year's Eve, 1979, and He's done it all. He's drunk it all. He's met everyone. He's sung it all. And he had 2 years of retirement from 1971 to 1973. And for him, retirement sucked. You know, he needed something. He needed excitement. He needed adventure. And he had a very restless mind. So he wanted to find his way back. But the world had moved on, you know, since the ring-a-ding days of the Rat Pack. And Fly Me to the Moon and all of that stuff. You know, we're in a world where somebody called Sid Vicious had done a punk version of My Way, you know, and it's disco reigns supreme. So where does someone who is in their 60s fit in, even though they've been an icon? So he's struggling with all of these questions, which we all struggle with. You know, this is something, when you get to this stage of your life, we all struggle with, whether you're Frank Sinatra or not. And somebody eventually brings him a new song called New York, New York, and he doesn't want to do it.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
No, he didn't want to do it because this is Liza's cast-off. But he does it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, definitely. And so if anyone sort of looks at your CV, and obviously I've had the great pleasure of sort of reviewing it before this interview, you've played Frank Sinatra for, is it 20, 25 years?
20 years, yeah. 20 years ago was the first time. So I played him, I've always played him age appropriate. So,
right.
When I was in a show called Rat Pack Confidential, which started life at the Nottingham Playhouse, and then it went to the West End in London, and he was in his 40s. You know, we represented him then as part of the Rat Pack. I went on later to do, I wrote and performed a show called Sinatra Raw, not raw like a lion, raw. And that was as it was approaching his retirement for the first time. So again, it was age appropriate. You know, I was the man being the man at that stage in his life. And here we are again now, some years later, again, age appropriate. So it's, 3 times over the last 20 years, it's great.
Yeah, definitely. And have you always had like a love for Frank Sinatra? Has he been there from your childhood, or is it something you sort of came to later in life? Or?
Funny question, great question. When I was a little boy, I was flicking through a magazine, and my mother was there, and there was a photograph of this man called Frank Sinatra as a child. And I looked at this photograph and said, "Mummy, who's this person? Frank Sinatra looks like me." And she kind of went, "Oh my God, it does." We look the same smile.
You very much do,
extraordinary. When I was in my 40s, there was an incredible similarity, you know. And I think there's a few angles, I can't remember if it's this side, that in the right lighting, it's kind of there's a physical resemblance. So what I'm saying is, even from a little boy, I knew of this man, Frank Sinatra. But I guess when I was about 14, my dad bought the cassette. You won't remember, you're too young.
No, that is a little before my time.
Oh my. Anyway, you had your vinyl, which is now popular again, and then cassettes, and I'd load the My Way cassette in. My dad was an amateur drummer, and I used to pick up the drumstick and sing into the drumstick.
Oh, amazing.
I was 14. Kind of imagining, and even then I got the phrasing and the lyricism and the shape of his voice. You know, I remember singing along to, you know, and here's to you, Mrs. Robinson, heaven, you know, or didn't we almost make it this time? You know, those sliding nuances.
Yeah. The sort of rubato and things
that's
like
right.
that.
Yeah. Even at 14, I sort of thought, I get this. I like this.
Yeah, it all just it was sort of like predetermined. It all just sort of made sense. The universe sort of gave it to you.
Yeah.
And how has, obviously you've sort of, as you were saying, you've sort of been singing Frank Sinatra since sort of like 14, 15 years old. How has it impacted your life playing someone, stepping into someone's shoes for that length of time? Does it begin to blur where you end and Frank begins, or vice versa?
How do I answer this? Okay, as an actor, when I'm acting him, you know, that's my job, and I am not Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
You know, I'm Richard Shelton. I was born in Wolverhampton. And I lived in London. I live in Los Angeles. I am my own person. Do you know what I mean? So I never blur those boundaries. I don't run around thinking I'm Frank Sinatra. But of course, I'm influenced by him, and I admire him hugely.
Yeah.
Because there's so much about the man I now know because of doing such a deep dive into his life, into his character. So his generosity, his mercurial, complex mind, you know, his kindness that people don't often know about. Of course, there's the stories about the mob, and there's the allegations of the womanizing and all the drinking and blah, 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 which is part of the myth. But am I influenced by him? I'm sometimes surprised by the similarities in our characters. Like, he was a very plain-speaking person. I'm a very plain-speaking person. And he was intolerant, and I could be more Buddhist, if I'm really honest with you. I fall on my sword. But, so sometimes I have a wry smile when I think, what would Frank Sinatra do in this? Oh dear. But no, I do admire him. I admire him very much.
And obviously we were talking, or you were sort of telling me before this interview sort of begun, one of the key similarities between yourself and Frank is how you're dressed right now.
Yes, the size. This is indeed Frank Sinatra's, one of his tuxedos. So this came into my life as a result of working in LA. I was recording with his bandmates and working with his bandmates, and was invited as a result to a party, an industry party, whereupon a lady turned to me just apropos of nothing and said, "Hi, my name's Heidi. My friend has an antique store in Beechwood Canyon, and he just got Frank Sinatra's tuxedo, and we're looking for a home for it." Apropos of nothing, I was dumbstruck. So I went to the store, tried it on, and it really did fit. It fit before, pre-pandemic. It was a loose fit. Let's just put it that way.
I think we've all been there. We've all been there.
But I'm slowing back into it. But it was Roger Moore. This is a neat bit of the story. Roger Moore, I was wearing it on television, and Roger Moore was a fellow guest, and he looked at me and he said, "Who are you?" I said, I'm Richard Shelton, doing a show about Frank Sinatra. This is his tuxedo. And Roger Moore went, "Show me the jacket pocket." So I did. He said, "Oh yeah, Cyril Castle, that's Frank's." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, Frank called me up. He said, 'Roger, where'd you get your tuxedo made? I want one.'" So I sent him to Cyril Castle. Isn't that a neat story?
Yeah, that's amazing. Verified by a sort of James Bond.
James Bond.
Yeah. And you've performed for someone incredibly famous. Obviously,
Yes.
your PRs tell me you've performed for the King. Is that right?
Yes.
Privately.
Privately.
Was that incredibly nerve-wracking? I could only imagine.
It was certainly bizarre. I mean, it was. Listen, as I said before, I'm from Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not from anywhere in particular. Just a good Wolverhampton boy who went to London when I was 18 years old. You know, with my little knapsack. So for me to go to Windsor Castle and do this extraordinary performance, and it was part of this private event where there were all sorts of luminaries there. Fiona Shaw was there, and the poet laureate, and actors, and all sorts of marvelous people. And I was asked to go along, and I was instructed to sing "The Girl from Ipanema."
Oh wow! Perhaps a favourite of His Majesty's.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if it was his, but it was definitely Camilla's.
Oh, so, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because he was looking at me kind of quizzically as if to say, "Who is this man? Why is he singing The Girl from Ipanema?" But Camilla was kind of rocking it. She was
rumbling along.
Yeah, she was.
And you as a sort of younger man, you had a chance meeting with Ella Fitzgerald. Is that right?
I did.
That sort of changed your life. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Oh boy, it was special. I mean, even now, it's made me go a little goosebumpy. I was 19, and before I did all of this, I had a life before. I trained boy and man in the hotel industry, and I was working in London at the Grosvenor House Hotel, and as a trainee manager. And I was leaving one night through the staff exit, and bye-bye. And the guy on the door said, "Hey, Richard, do you like the music? Aren't you staying for the music tonight? And I said, I'm so tired. No, I'm going home. And as I walked out, I said, who's playing? And he went, Ella Fitzgerald and Oscar Peterson. I was like, what? So I hot-footed it round, met up with the producer who I knew. I said, Mike, is there any chance I could meet Ella Fitzgerald? And he went, yes. Come to me at the end of the show, because she had terrible eyesight. She was diabetic. And he said, at the end, when I give you the go-ahead, you go on stage, you give her your hand, and you bring her off. So I plucked a rose from a flower arrangement. And when he said go, I walked out with this rose. There she was taking her bows. And I said, Miss Fitzgerald, this is for you with all my love. She goes, thank you, darling, thank you. She held my hand for about 15 minutes. It was mind-blowing, mind-blowing.
That's absolutely amazing. And another, I always find that's very interesting when I sort of like look at sort of the prospective interviewees like credits. I sort of noticed that sort of maybe earlier in your career you did a wealth of Shakespeare.
Yes.
Obviously very different from Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
Is there any similarities between the two, or?
No, but but yes, truth. When you are acting, when you are singing, when you are performing, tell the truth. Whatever the truth is. And you know, in Emmerdale, I played a horrible doctor.
Yes.
I was a murderer. Tell the truth of the character. And people are persuaded by it, and they go along with it. So I would say, yeah, Shakespeare is a wonderful... Look, when you're speaking those words, they are... Oh, my goodness, there's nothing finer. Especially when you sort of get the rhythm and you're with people who really know what they're doing. It's extraordinary. It's a music. But I would say that with this, for example, you know, I seek to tell the truth of a man who is now in his 60s and is fragile and vulnerable. And as long as you tell the truth and you expose yourself, then people will go on the story with you. So that's the similarity.
Amazing. So finally, for our viewers at home, if you could look into the camera, tell them when and where your show's on and why they should see it.
The show is on every day, except the 17th and the 24th, at Le Monde, the Dirty Martini. It's so apt, you know. Dirty Martini at Le Monde, 3:30 on George Street. And why would you come and see it? You'd come and see it to hear some magnificent music. Some music you might not think was associated with the man, but also stories about vulnerability, but most importantly, reinvention and hope.
Amazing, thank you so much. And a final thank you to Virgin Hotels for this amazing space. It's sort of very apt. We're here on this lovely sort of velvet couch. And thank you so much and enjoy your Fringe.